Hey there. So, anyways, there's kind of some. When did this pop up? Was this just yesterday that this popped up, Ben?
Not yesterday. I'm pretty sure it was the day before.
Day before. So, Capcom has dropped a countdown coming up to, I don't know, some kind of game. I don't know what particularly this could be. I mean, the thing is that the grunge here is definitely hinting towards Resident Evil, would be my guess.
And
So,
the clock.
it's been a year since Resident Evil 8. Um, just for
More than a year.
some it would be really funny if they just completely threw everyone off and like released the new Breath of Fire or something. And then everyone would be like, "What?" A series that I miss dearly. But I could say a bunch of stuff about Capcom because Capcom is one of my favorite gaming companies in history. I think it's been one of the most like consistently loved by me. As in every generation, there's been Capcom games that I've been interested in. Played Mega Man like crazy my whole life, all of that, and then when I went to Super Nintendo, obviously to Mega Man X and, whatever else, Super Ghouls and Ghosts and Street Fighter, and then, you know, PS1 and whatnot. I played so much Street Fighter and Resident Evil, and then obviously going from that to PS2, we had Okami and Beautiful Joe, and we had all Resident Evil 4 and all of the goodness that Onimusha Warlords too. I love Onimusha series. It was like the slower. It was between Devil May Cry and Resident Evil, and like the
Well,
exact median franchise between the two.
well, it was one of the prototypes ideas for Resident 4.
It would be absolutely hilarious if this like clock timer themed more, current time and this grunge here, and then the reveal was like Onimusha 4 or something
Or
like that.
like a reboot, remake kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be pretty hilarious. But, obviously it's not going to be that. It's going to be um it's going to be Resident Evil 8 probably. DLC. What else could it be?
Well, okay. So like the pretty much like 100% guesses are it's either Resident Evil or Street Fighter or both.
Like a Resident
Because
Evil pack for Street Fighter?
okay, you could take it that route too, and it to go with an idea that I had thought up. Them making not it wouldn't be like a Marvel game, but it would be Capcom All Stars, which is
Yeah.
just Marvel but with only Capcom IPs.
Well, Capcom needs to pivot. They need to hit Street Fighter 6 because I don't think that they can get any excitement around 5. Like I
Oh
think
no, five's done.
5's. Oh yeah, so they whatever they do, you think they would do like their own All Stars fighter game?
They have plenty of IPs to do it.
I mean, they do. They would have to base it off of one of their current engines and setups. I mean, they could do it off of Street Fighter 5 if they really wanted to.
Or
Um,
they could use Marvel MVCI, but tweak it a bit so that way it visually looks interesting versus with the way MVCI looks.
yeah, I mean, Capcom's always had the some of the best art direction in video games. If you look at like period pieces, it's like Resident Evil 5 is even aged better than like 80% of games from the PS3 gen visually. Same with Resident Evil
Yeah.
4 obviously, and Devil May Cry is always aged particularly
Well,
well.
to go with Resident Evil 4,
Yeah.
this might not necessarily just be Resident Evil 8 DLC. It could also be the startup of Resi 4 make that they
Yeah, but even though they just released Resident Evil 4 VR, it feels like a weird.
That's also another idea I have for that.
Yeah,
PSVR 2 is on the horizon.
it's true.
They could have used that as basically R&D for making remake 4 compatible with VR2 on PS5
Well,
because if anyone's played Resident Evil 7 in VR, that's the preferred way to play it.
yeah, it's true. It's so creepy, and it's like 3 times creepier in VR versus not in VR. Now, when it comes to Resident Evil, Resident Evil 4, the thing is they've kept the code base. A lot of games lose their code base, and when they have to remake it, it's almost impossible because they have to. The timing would be slightly different, which is what we saw with Crash Bandicoot 1, 2, and 3. It's like the jump timing wasn't exactly the same because they had to rebuild it entirely. Whereas Resident Evil 4, obviously they ported it 1,000 times, so they've kept the code base intact, and they keep porting it, which means that they would just have to completely rebuild the renderer and the visuals for it. And they would be able to keep the logic and the behaviors mostly the same if they wanted to, unless they wanted to do something even more of an improvement, in which case they could rebuild it within RE Engine using kind of the framework of RE2 Make or 3 Make. And that's something they could do.
which I would prefer, to be honest. I wouldn't just want a pretty version of RE4. I would like a new retelling of RE4.
Okay, gotcha.
But then again, I'm not like you, and I like Final Fantasy VII Remake.
I loved RE2 and RE2 Make. I didn't love RE3 Make as much. I think that the Final Fantasy VII remake is terrible, and I can explain it in one video, and maybe I will do that at some point in time, because you can take one scene of Final Fantasy VII remake and compare it to the original and show everything that they ruined in the process. But it's a specific scene that when I watch both versions of it, it loses all the intent. You know what? We will do that in another video, Ben. You have queued it, and there is no turning back on that now. I am definitely going to talk about the art direction and direction of that game and what's missing. Anyways, what are some of the other points that you have on Capcom?
Okay, so as I've kind of said earlier, it could either be RE or Street Fighter,
Okay,
and I've kind of said basically what I think for RE, that the easiest bet is it's RE8 DLC because they've said it's in production and they haven't said a thing about it yet.
it's true.
The other thing I said is it could be, if I hope it's both, like as much of what I'm going to say as possible happens at once and not just this is a tease for one thing,
Yeah, yeah,
but it's more of like a direct, like a Capcom direct where they start announcing a whole bunch of things.
yeah.
But like RE4 remake, and if we want to get into buyouts, Sony buying Capcom and like forcing, if you want to say forcing, uh, VR2 on both titles, on Resi 8 as well as Formink.
I think they would need to have shown. I mean, it would kind of be. I don't think that would be Capcom's reveal. I think that would be a Sony reveal if that was the case. So that would be my argument on that one. Whereas if this was a Sony reveal that was slightly Capcom themed, then I'd be like, huh, what's going on here? Now, I know that out of all of the companies, I know that it's hard to buy Japanese companies unless
Yeah.
you're a Japanese company. So the best bets at buying Japanese companies are basically Nintendo and Sony, although Sony has kind of rebased itself into the US and they're less of a Japanese company than they used to be. But I'm kind of curious what I don't know. Like I would say that it's much more likely this is just straightforward Resident Evil 8 DLC. Um, but I would love to be surprised with something else, right? Like,
Well, there's also the other RE thing, which is the multiplayer for Resi 8, the Reverse.
mm,
I'm actually like relaunching it again, maybe changing the art style to make it look a bit more interesting, changing the gameplay up a bit.
yeah, there's so many modes they could have done with that that would have been more interesting than what they did. But
Mhm.
it's kind of, I think like even if you did like a Mr. X chase mode where one player is Mr. X and like everyone else is just, it's like ultimate hide and seek or something like that, would have been pretty fun.
That's Dead by Daylight
Yeah, basically.
gameplay mechanic. Yeah,
I haven't tried Dead by Daylight. I should probably try it. They have like every horror theme ever in there. So,
yeah, pretty
um,
much.
what other points you want to hit on?
Well, to go to the other side of what I was saying, Street Fighter.
Yeah.
There's, as you've kind of said before, is Street Fighter 6 because Street Fighter 5's done,
Hmm.
and this day lines up with where Capcom Cup would have ended.
Yeah.
I believe it got canceled. So, but this lines up with that exact date. So that's also what's leading people to think that this is a hint, tease, showcase of RE6,
Okay.
or from what very subtle rumors have said that their next one won't be RE6 but Alpha 3.
Alpha 3. What? Why Alpha 3 specifically?
Just like a return to that style of Street Fighter to give them more time to figure out what they're going to do with Street
Six.
Fighter 6 because it's screwed up so hard and Ono got canned for it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, okay, that makes sense. I don't think. I mean, I think this is pretty obviously. I think it's like 80% that it's just a Resident Evil, but it would be cool if it was something else. Man, one of sorry,
Well,
another Capcom revival just came to my head. Capcom has so many franchises they could just revive, and everyone would be so stoked. It's like Mega Man Legends 3 if they if they
yes,
did that. If they
yes.
just secretly like this countdown went off, and when it ended, it was like Chris Redfield introducing Mega Man Legends 3. That would be absolutely hilarious.
Well, that's why, like I said earlier about like Capcom All Stars, they could reintroduce franchises with that, and then I guess gauge some sort of popularity, and then possibly go into their legacy IPs and revive them a bit, like we were saying with like Onimusha.
Well, they did the recent Ghouls and Ghost. So I played through
Yeah,
that. I enjoyed it a lot. I think the art style was a little weird. It was odd that it was using spine-based animation in RE engine, which is a weird mix. I
really
wi-
good looking, weird animation.
well, it's very fluid, but very unnatural animation is what Spine almost always provides, unless you do like an Aegis Rim or an Odin Sphere with it, where you just have a limited set of characters and you draw them from as many views as humanly possible. Um, anyways, yeah. Any other kind of theories you want to hit on there?
um, that day, the 21st, will be the 10th anniversary of Asura's Wrath.
Yeah, but Azura's Wrath was done with what, Cyber Connect?
Cyber 2 Connect or
Cyber
Cyber Connect 2, however you want
Cyber
to say their
Connect
name,
2.
yes.
Yeah. So, anyways, I think that that's very unlikely, but that would be a dream for you. I know you're the huge Azura's Wrath fan. I mean, it would be amazing for them to just re-release it because one of the biggest nitpicks about Azura's Wrath, like even imagine buying it used today and like or used in a few years when realizing the eShop is shut down and that you can't finish the story of the game because the last two chapters were DLC.
The dark era of Capcom, yes.
Yeah. So it's like, can you imagine? That's like the worst thing for longevity. For if your PS3 ever died, heaven forbid, you could ever see the last two chapters anywhere other than YouTube, right? Which is sad because that was some of the most the over the top part of that game. Um, Very weird for them to hold that back, but anyways, um, what else? What else you got, Ben?
There's like two other like I don't think it's these at all, but they like kind of make the rounds.
Okay,
One being Pragmata, their new IP,
okay.
but they've recently said that that game I don't think is releasing any point before 2023, so I don't think we're going to hear anything about it until like maybe end half of this year.
Gotcha.
And then there's the whole free MVC2 movement that was going on, but again, that was only like a year ago, and
They don't own that one is the issue with
exactly
it.
licensing and like the legality of getting in with Disney and possibly getting that over onto
Even though
current
Disney
consoles.
even though Disney for some reason keeps releasing Kingdom Hearts games, allowing Square to do that, I don't understand that for the life of me cuz it's like I don't think there's anything that Disney is attached to like that makes no sense. Like where you can't even follow the narrative from one point to another. Because it's like none of those movies are like that, but it's just like this nonsense hodgepodge right now. I mean, some people love it. I don't want to rip on it too much. I'm gonna probably get my own grave when I do this Final Fantasy VII video that I'm now forced to do with you. In fact, I think we might do it right now and then just see how that goes.
I don't
But
know. I haven't researched. I can't like counter your yelling.
no, no, no. You don't. I need you to be raw, Ben. You can defend it all you want, but anyways. So what's the last point you got?
Uh, well, just mostly because Capcom doesn't do events like this. They
Mm,
usually announce what they're going to talk about, and then talk about it, like what they've done with Monster Hunter over the last like World as well as
Rise.
Rise.
Yeah.
Um, are the REs like RE two make to three make
Was 3 Make
to
dropped
eight
at
to
Games
seven?
Awards, right?
Uh,
Was it? Or was it a state of play or something?
I think it was something along that lines of like end of the year something, either the Game Awards or Sony State of Play, and then what was it? Usually like February, March is when they release it,
Yeah.
like two make and three make. But they even had their own like showcases to go over it as well a bit. Like even with eight, they had that,
Yeah.
and like they did it with DMC a few times as well as like for the last what was it 2 or 3 seasons they did that with Street Fighter.
Mm.
Like ever since the Ono was kicked out and the new people were put in charge of Street Fighter, they had like their like regular directs going over like the new character and new mechanics within the character and kind of hinting towards what character is coming next.
Yeah.
So they don't like to do the secret pay attention to us in the future announcement.
Yeah.
They usually let you know what's coming and then go over it.
So they want
So
this to be a secret. The big things are that they've stylized it more Resident Evil. Maybe they're going to go like completely out of left field. Maybe this is Revelations 3 and we weren't expecting it. You know, it's like it could be. Revelations is pretty loved, especially the first one. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it could be. Anyways, I mean, we'll find out in 5 days. Maybe we're right. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe it is a Breath of Fire re-release or Mega Man Legends 3. That would be amazing. But that's Asura's Wrath 2. Yeah, could be. Or like a 4K re-release of it would be great too.
Yeah.
Um, but anyways, hopefully you like the video and our wild speculation. And have a good one. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.